right, we're looking at one of my favorite core drills. Not an ab drill, but this is more for your rotating muscles. So a lot of your obliques, internal and external obliques, but it's a movement where there's no motion. Okay, so think of it like your planks and like your bridges and more static movements. But this is something where instead of like a side plank, where the focus is on not letting the hips shift this way, we're looking at not letting the hips be rotated this way. So it's called a Pallof hold. This can often be done with a cable setup, and here we don't have a cable setup that works for it, so we're going to use bands, kind of like bands because you can adjust the resistance on the fly in the middle of the movement too. So I've got a band attached at roughly sternum height to a rack. So all I did to put this band on, okay, take the band, I'm simply just looping it around and I'm sliding one end into the other. So I'm pretty positive this is called a slip knot, but if I'm wrong, don't yell at me because I'm not a sailor. So I'm just guessing. Okay, so I've got this set at my chest. I put one hand inside the band like this. I'm going to clasp my hands together like this. All I'm trying to do is make sure this band doesn't go anywhere. Okay, I start with my hands at my sternum. I am basically in a straight line with the rack. If you look at this band, it's just one straight line here. And then I'm just going to move to the side, park my feet nice and stable, a little bit wide on the shoulder width, got a soft bend in my knees. Okay, so I'm not lock-kneed here. And I'm starting nice tall posture. Get hands are at my sternum, chest is up, feet are secure. I'm going to slowly, I'm going to take a deep breath in, I'm just going to drive straight out in front of my chest. Okay, so in this position, the band is trying to pull me this direction. Okay, so I am trying to resist that rotation. So I've got a couple of things going on. I've got the oblique muscles over here that are fighting the pull of this. I've also got some stabilization happening over here on my glute medius and my TFL muscles that are trying not to let my hip get displaced. Okay, so you got a couple of things that are going on at the same time. The focus is less on the hip over here. I'm thinking mostly about training this, but there's some reciprocation between the spinal muscles and the hip muscles happening at the same time. So while I'm here, again, chest is up, I'm driving straight up and out. Okay, and I'm trying to actually separate my shoulder blades and push this as far forward in front of my chest as I can, and I simply am just going as a static hold. Okay, now you might start at something like 20, 30 seconds, and then build your way up, and then you might take a little bit more of a lateral step. If you find it's a little too easy, you can lateral step this way. If it's too hard, you can lateral step this way. So you can start with it as an isometric, and then there's a few things that you can do once you've kind of nailed the isometric. So one of those things that you can do is add some motion. Okay, so I can start a little bit closer to the rack. I can drive this out. If I want to, now I can actually start adding some side motion. Okay, now granted, depending on the band you're using, how far out you go might be a little bit more limited, but you've got some options. Another thing that I kind of like doing with this too is if you drop the band down to maybe about belly button height, you can approach this from a kneeling position, which is going to change the dynamics a little bit more because now I'm anchored down by my knees instead of by my feet. So the recruitment of my glutes, my hip muscles, and my core muscles is going to shift a little bit. So now from the kneeling position, I still have it at sternum level now, but now I'm here, so same idea. I want to come out this way, and then just driving straight out here. Okay, so this is going to remove some of the hip work because of me coming down onto my knees instead of on my feet. Okay, so we can go this way on two knees, which is called tall kneeling. We can shift to half kneeling, which is just putting one knee out in front. And we can do this both with the outside leg facing forward. Here. We can also do this with the inside leg facing forward. Here. Now if you do it with the inside leg facing forward, instead of the hip becoming the stabilizer over on this side, you're actually starting to use the inner thigh, the adductor, as your stabilizer. So that's probably the biggest difference you're going to notice among some of those different kneeling positions is when you come in here, it's no longer the glute here that's resisting the force, it's my adductor trying to fight against that rotation here. So a few different positions that we can use on that Pallof position. Does tend to work, I think, the best as just an isometric hold instead of trying to get too fancy with it. But when you're getting tired of a lot of your planks and your side planks and some of those stationary drills, make sure you add in something like this so you're addressing the core from a more 360 perspective. So give it a try.